today, you want Paul George, you want Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, you want Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins to be the outgoing players, largely, and you want Jonathan Kuminga to not be involved in the deal. That sound about right?
That sounds about right as far as the pipe dream goes.
Yeah.
And the likelihood of that for me feels like less than a 1 in 100 chance that actually comes to pass.
Oh, I agree with you there.
I mean, you're asking for a couple of like major trade wins. You're asking to get Paul George for Chris Paul and what?
Can I be the first to say, though, that when Mikal Bridges went, everyone went, whoa, you have to give like 87 picks.
Only 5.
Okay. Is anybody else sort of like, that's all it took to get Dejounte Murray?
A little bit.
That's it? Larry Nance Jr.,
and a couple first-round picks.
Dyson
Daniels.
I like the player.
And 2 first-rounders, 25 and 27. The worst of the 2 first-rounders that you have in 27. That's it?
Well,
that's all that it took to give, like, that's nothing.
Well, Paul George is better than Dejounte Murray. And Dejounte Murray is
older.
Yes, but Dejounte Murray is about to have his contract explode over the course of the next season.
No, I totally understand. I'm just saying, if I'm the Pelicans, I don't feel like I sent anything out at all that, like, makes me worse. You know, I know that there are 2 first-round picks. I get that. I understand. I'm just saying that if you're trying to win right now, and the Pelicans are, that feels like a very good deal to me. I would like the Warriors to make some deals like that, where a good player comes in and you feel like none of your really good players went out.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that.
Dyson Daniels, former lottery pick, and he's entering his 3rd year. Okay. Not as good as Jonathan Kuminga. He could make a 3rd-year leap, you would hope. He's a 20-year-old player, so there's upside there.
Sure.
Kuminga has done more in his first 2 years than Daniels had, but he's a guy who's under team control for a couple more years, so as the acquiring team, you might like the upside there.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged less than 6 points a game.
Yep.
So,
yeah, limited minutes. So, but former lottery pick. It's definitely a chance, you know.
But that's not my point is the Pelicans, they gave up. Ready for it?
Not a lot.
Nothing.
Couple picks.
Yeah, but they gave up no known commodities. This is what the Warriors are trying to avoid as well. And Ramona said it to us yesterday. Kuminga and Podziemski. I know that there are 4 young players, and we like all 4, but let's get real. Kuminga and Podziemski. Other teams are asking, the Warriors are saying no. Those are, I would argue, pretty much your known commodities.
Yep.
I know that Moody has his moments. TJD is exciting. I think both of them are NBA players. I think they've got a career. But known commodities, like these are players who can be starters. They could play at a high level. Kuminga is someone who might be able to average north of 18 points a game here pretty soon. These are known commodities. Can the Warriors do business and improve without giving up their known commodities? The Pelicans just did.
Right, for Dejounte Murray,
Correct.
who is a good player, but he's not Paul George. Paul George, as you've mentioned, is an all-star, and Paul George is a guy who can come in and probably impact you more than Dejounte Murray will impact New Orleans. So
27, though. He's a lesser player, but he's a lot younger.
Right. And that's fine. Volume shooter. And I like Dejounte Murray. I've been talking all week about how I thought that he'd be a good player that the Warriors could target in that mid-price range, at least for the upcoming season. But, I think that Paul George is going to command a higher price than that. But back to your original premise that you threw out to our good friend Eric Pincus, friend of the program from Bleacher Report, could they bring in Paul George and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in sign-in trades, and all the while you're losing Wiggins, Chris Paul, and Klay Thompson? If you could do that, well, then you got a lot better over the course of this week.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think that's a little. It's not only one Hail Mary. For me, it's 2 Hail Marys.
Maybe. I this is sort of what I've been stressing, even though I don't know exactly where these are all going to go, but all of the deals, each one of them is kind of on their own as far as what the return is going to be, because You are either in a catbird seat and you can talk to all of the teams, or you're not. And this is one thing that I'm still sort of scratching my head about, and that is how much power do the Los Angeles Clippers actually have? And the reason I don't know the answer is I don't know the nature of the negotiations that have gone on between Paul and the Clippers in recent times. If they're in a situation where he's definitely not going to sign an extension and he opts in tomorrow to his contract with the Clippers, the final year of his deal, it puts the Clippers in a really wobbly spot. Essentially, it starts a clock on when you deal him. And every day that goes by that you don't deal him, the offer goes down.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, with the trade deadline, you're going to get less for a rental of Paul George versus the fact that right now you have teams who are, and it may only be 2 or 3 teams, but you've got teams who are sitting here going, no, we want to sign Paul George to a 4-year deal. We want him and in all of his glory on our team right now, and we want to have him for the whole season, and we want to build around him and all of that. That's a much more powerful spot, I think, than the trade deadline halfway through the year, and you don't know who's going to be good, bad, and who could even fit him. So to me, if they are definitely not doing an extension and he opts in tomorrow, it starts a clock on the Clippers, and they have to deal him, and that's not a very powerful spot to be.
True, but I do think that when you get to the deadline and there are more teams who might be a player away in their mind from making a run at a title, then you can be more motivated to make a trade in February and think about signing him to an extension in the offseason or signing him to an extension right then if you so see it. The other piece that Grandy played on our way back in from Eric Pincus is what makes me think that the Warriors are going to be more motivated to overpay in a trade, because if Chris Paul goes out because you just waive him and Klay Thompson goes elsewhere because he's a free agent, you're stuck in a spot where the only thing you can do is use the mid-level,
right,
which is not even enough to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who opted out of 15, and the mid-level's about 12. So now you're losing Chris Paul, you're losing Klay, you're not trading for Paul George or anyone else, and you're going to bring in a mid-level guy. That, for me, is a nightmare scenario for the Warriors.
Agreed.
Which would make me think that they would get overly aggressive if they thought, throwing in, and you hate to say Kuminga because nobody wants to trade Kuminga.
I know.
But if you want Paul George, you may have to do something uncomfortable knowing that without signing trades, you're screwed.
You might. You absolutely might. Here's what I'm hanging my hat on today, at least, because you laid out the nightmare scenario, and I agree with you. Klay walks, Chris gets waived, you still have no money to spend, and no one wants Wiggins. Okay, all right. Are the Warriors going to let that happen? I would argue that the signs say no. The fact that you're delaying Chris Paul's deadline from Friday to Sunday, combined with the fact that you have essentially participated, at least you are half of whatever the discord is between you and Klay Thompson, you've let it get icier. You have clearly informed his representatives. We are prioritizing a bunch of other stuff. Would you do all that if you didn't feel good that something was going to land? We're going to land this plane. If you didn't feel like you had action on some level, I don't know what they're trying to do. Prioritize Paul George, sure, but what's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? Would you act the way they're acting if you didn't feel like you had something cooking?
Well, I don't know.
I don't think you would.
Well, I think that the ice that has formed between Klay and the Warriors has not formed over the last 2 weeks when he scrubbed his account of them and he unfollowed them and scrubbed his account. I would say that the ice that has formed, assuming that there is ice between the Warriors and Klay Thompson, I would trace it back further than just the offseason.
You're not wrong, but it's gotten worse. Remember, I read this directly from Mark Stein. Golden State has used this week to prioritize the pursuit of Paul George over all other business. That has only increased the chill between Thompson and the club after months of already spotty and now scant contact between the sides. So whatever it was, you're not wrong. That's where it was born. But my point is, it got worse this week. If you're the Warriors, would you let it continue to get worse if you didn't feel like? And would you delay Chris Paul if you didn't feel like you had action?
I don't think you have a choice on the delaying of Chris Paul. And I also think that with Klay Thompson, if there hasn't been much communication, if it's been scant and spotty, that's a two-way thing. And, the Warriors aren't going to string Klay along thinking that he all the while is plan E. I don't think that they were going to disrespect him like that. So the fact that there hasn't been a contract offer, there hasn't been action, all that stuff has led to the relationship being icy. I don't think there's any way to make believe any other way than the way that they've gone about acting.
No, I understand everything that you're saying. I just believe that there's PR here as well. The nightmare scenario that you laid out is not just a nightmare for basketball, it's a nightmare for PR. If you let Klay walk and you don't offer your fans something else, holy crap. All you did was tick him off and kick him to the curb and come back with a mid-level? I think people would be furious, don't you?
Yes, which is why, and getting back to the Paul George part of it, I think that if they have a chance to acquire Paul George in a trade, I think the Warriors would be more willing to lose the deal than they otherwise would, because they are in a spot. They're in a tough spot. If Chris leaves and Klay leaves and you come back with a mid-level, a fill-in-the-blank guy, I think that from a PR standpoint, you're right. That's devastating. So I don't think that you can go to Mr. Lacob and on July 4th or July 5th and say, yeah, Joe, here's our roster. I'll show myself out. And it's, it's Andrew and Steph and Draymond and, the rest of the fellas. 888-957-9570 is the number. We'd love to take your calls on this. By the way, it has become official. Your San Jose Sharks have selected Macklin Celebrini with the number 1 overall pick in the NHL draft. That is beyond not a surprise. Everybody knew that was happening, but the draft is tonight. The pick is in. Dibs, I like the pick. I like the player. I also like the family.
Yeah, absolutely. We like the family. Joe Thornton went up there and announced it. Macklin Celebrini is getting handshakes and hugs and heading up to the stage at the NHL draft, which I will say I find for the second time this week oddly placed. Like, it's Friday, it's 4:15, we're having a draft on the worst TV night of the week. Okay.
Speaking of place, did you see where it is physically taking place?
It's taking place in the Sphere, isn't
so
it?
cool.
I like the suit
cool.
he's wearing, and I love the venue.
Yeah, the Sphere has got a good look, and maybe all drafts should just be there from now on.
And Jumbo Joe still has not shaved. Maybe he decided that he wouldn't shave until he won another Stanley Cup or a Stanley Cup, and so now he's just going to be bearded like that forever.
Joe Thornton is a good solid 73 pizzas away from being Santa. He is a svelte man, but if he got fat, that's a good Santa beard right there.
No doubt.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
Macklin Celebrini.
Congrats.
San Jose Sharks. Congrats to the entire Warriors organization as well, obviously where his dad, Rick Celebrini, is employed. Okay, let's go to Josh on 580. He's been patient. Hi, Josh. What are you doing?
What's going on, guys? All 580 now in Manteca.
Okay.
On some business, but yeah.
I love when you call in, and by the time you get on, you're like, I'm in Nevada now. Anyway, go ahead, Josh.
I'm here, dude. I almost hit the 5 and was on my way to Fresno.
Okay.
Shout out Lil Neil. But yeah, what you guys hit on is exactly what a couple of things I want to talk about. The first is, I thought it was interesting in the comment you made about Bron and how he's controlling the Lakers, because where is Steph out in regards to Klay? If they're boys, he got Draymond in the deal. Why hasn't that happened for Klay, and how does that make Klay feel in regards to Steph and Draymond, which further leads me to my next point, which is why I think I agree with you guys. Klay, he's got to be gone because he's just an emotional guy. He doesn't feel respected, doesn't feel the love. He's got to go. And while I'm sitting on waiting for you guys talking, listening to Eric talk, the more and more I'm like, oh yeah, we're set up for this nightmare situation, because the Paul George deal, if you talk about it too much, it's not going to happen. Nobody knew about the Dejounte Murray trade. Nobody knew about the Bridges trade. That's why they went down. But if you talk about it too much, it's not going to happen. The Paul George is going to happen. We're going to let go of Chris Paul. We're not going to get Klay. We're set up for a really bad season, and it's sad. But this is how Dynasty's in. So here's what I got to say. Cooper Flag, baby. Give me Cooper Flag.
There it is. Let's go.
Yeah, Josh. So
you want to flop for Flag?
Here's
what he wants to do.
Here's what I'd say. Like I said yesterday, when you hear about it too much, it feels like somebody is just trying to leverage the situation. There's an agent calling somebody, telling them to say this publicly. I get it. But by the same token, it's possible that this one's different because what they were trying to leverage was the deadlines. Chris Paul's deadline Friday. Paul George's deadline is Saturday. Now Chris Paul's deadline is Sunday. What's Paul actually going to do? All three sides don't know exactly what chess move is going to be made. So I don't think a Paul George deal is likely. I do think there is an outside chance, but I'm normally with you about the sound of all of it. Now, to your first point, this is an interesting one to me, and I want to make sure at least, I sort of explain myself accurately with regard to that idea that everyone's like, okay, Bron drafted Bronny. What would Steph do, or why doesn't Steph do that for Klay? These situations couldn't be more different. The issue I had, and it's not an issue, but the thing that I noticed with what the Lakers did here and LeBron James is they made a basketball move that wasn't about basketball. That's why I made my comment yesterday with regard to Steph would never do that. Steph would make a move about basketball. That's it. Does it help him win? Now, that does not mean that Steph Curry is under some obligation to help the Warriors and Klay Thompson get together on a deal. For all we know, Steph is sitting there going, that's not best for basketball. Steph knows all the things that we don't know. If we think Klay's angry, then I guarantee you he was angry 83 times that we don't know about. And Steph does. So Steph is not, this isn't about, please, let's not make the whole NBA now about boys helping out boys. You don't just help your boy out. You try to win. That's why I thought yesterday was embarrassing for the Lakers, because you do everything in your power to find assets to win. And I firmly believe that that's what Steph Curry is about and what he's doing. And right now, as painful as it is for many of us, he may believe, and Klay may believe, that means Klay not staying as opposed to the opposite.
It all depends on what the finances are. And so let's play out the nightmare scenario a little further about what could happen. And Eric Pincus from Bleacher Report laid it out. If Chris goes and you waive him and then Klay decides to test free agency and all you have left is the mid-level and Klay doesn't have a better deal anywhere else, well, you could bring Klay back for the mid-level and pay him $12 million, and that would be your move. And so that would be basically running it back from last year, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. And the PR of that would be a disaster. And I think that, Steph probably looks at the situation and Draymond and all the rest of the vets in this team, and they all know what we know, which is you have to be better. And we can all say if Draymond didn't get suspended and you win 4 more games and you're the 6th seed, we could play the what-if game all you want, but the cold reality, the cold fish slap across the face was you were a 10 seed, you went to Sacramento, and you got motorboated. That is the reality of what happened.
Absolutely.
And Joe Lacob, the anger on his face, you think Klay was angry? Joe Lacob was angry, and that's why I think that they're going to be ultra aggressive to make some sort of a move.
I think that's the pivot point right there.
Yeah.
There's your pivot point. When sentimentality left town, that was the moment. Klay Thompson's sitting here going, I've done X, Y, Z. And Joe Lacob's sitting here going, dude, unfortunately, it doesn't matter anymore. We were a 10 seed and got blown off the floor.
118-94, Mark.
And it wasn't that close.
No.
And you know it. It wasn't that close. And so I just think what happens here is you've got large egos on both sides that have both gotten embarrassed and forced priorities in opposite directions. Klay Thompson is a proud and phenomenal basketball player. Very, very well accomplished. What comes with that? That ego. Ego comes with that. And wanting to be acknowledged and paid and respected and all the rest. But meantime, the Warriors as an organization are a proud organization with championship pedigree as well. And they felt embarrassed at the end of last year. And so now what do you do about it? Well, you can't stay the same. So while Klay wants respect and sentimentality, the Warriors want improvement. And Klay's probably sitting there going, I can't be a part of improvement. And because of timing, the Warriors are like, no. And that's cold.
Yeah.
That is a cold, hard conversation.
And that's why we're getting reports from Mark Stein that the relationship is icy and there have been scant communication because they told him a couple of weeks ago, it seems, if I'm reading the tea leaves, a couple of weeks ago when he unfollows the Warriors, the call was made like, where are we at, Warriors? I mean, what are we going to do here? Are you going to make us an offer or not? And the Warriors went, we're going to get back to you. Can we get back to you, Klay? Yeah, we'll get back to you. You're going to be plan E. And at that point, you realize that they had to go elsewhere to try to get better. And here we are, 2 days away from the start of all of it. And what are they going to do, Hotshot? What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Listen to this from Mark Stein. We've read a couple quotes. I haven't read this one yet. Quote, it will take time for many NBA watchers to get used to the idea of Klay Thompson in a different uniform if he is indeed prepared to leave the Golden State Warriors in free agency. The signs, though, have frankly never pointed more strongly to it. The Warriors reportedly leaving Thompson in the rearview mirror for the possibility of someone else is risky. There is no guarantee that they can land George. 34-year-old's demanding a 4-year max contract, and he's only attainable for the Warriors through sign and trade. Besides giving up on Thompson, the aging Warriors still would be committing to more older players while potentially shipping away some of their promising young ones.
Yeah, that two things in there struck me. One, the promising young ones. For me, that's Jonathan Kuminga. And I've said this all along. If I'm the Clippers, it's a non-starter if Kuminga's not in the deal. You and I disagree on that. Time will tell. The other part of it is, what if Klay Thompson says no to a sign and trade? What if the Warriors say, hey, Klay, we got a chance to put you in a sign and trade. You're going to go be an LA Clipper, and it's a part of a deal with Chris Paul, and we're going to get Paul George for you. And Klay says, no, I'm not going to.
I don't think Klay has to be a part of it.
No, but if
the sign and trade is George signing to be traded.
Right, but I'm also thinking about what if Klay was a part of the sign and trade and he said, no, I'm good on that.
He might.
Exactly.
He very well
if things
might.
are as icy as it's being portrayed, maybe he doesn't want to do that.